everyone, Chaps here, and this is the new Prusa Mk4 or Mark IV, or whatever you want to call it. This is the start of a short series where I'll be unboxing and assembling the printer. If you'd rather, I have a single longer video that goes through the whole process, and that should be out soon, and the links are all going to be down below. As usual, I've got timestamps below if you want to skip around. And I've also got links to the online assembly manual as well if you want to follow along there, or if you're trying to assemble it yourself. There's actually a lot of user comments that go along with the online assembly, and it probably would have made the process a little bit easier for me rather than using the printed manual. So let's get this started with the unboxing. Something to note here is that while I have two static cameras set up for this build that I'll flip in between, my main priority was the build, not the camera angles, so some of the views may not be the best. I'm glad I had this decent sized table to use for the assembly, because as you'll see, there are a ton of parts, and I really make use of this full table. Most parts are shipped in these categorized boxes. I figured that my best course of action was to separate each of these boxes, and then open each and sort the bags that are in each box. It's all nicely labeled, so it was easy to sort the X-axis, Z-axis, electronics, Y parts, and so on. I built a Mark III kit years ago, so I'm familiar with the basics, so I skipped over the beginning of this instruction manual. So now we're onto the frame. For each step they tell you what hardware and what parts are going to be used, so I try to get those out in advance. The first step is attaching the base onto these vertical frames. I'm dumb and somehow messed up this first step and put these in the wrong spot. So let me take those off and correct them. And now we can get to the shorter legs. As with almost any assembly, using a star or diagonal pattern is a must. Get all of the pieces mostly tightened, then go back around and crisscross pattern for final tightening. The next step is installing these square nuts that slide along the side of the extrusions. They only fit in one direction, so they're easy to slide in. We can then go ahead and add the end plates. We'll add the short one and then the long one. Up next are some rubber feet, which should help dampen some vibrations a bit. We push them into place and rotate 90 degrees to lock them in. These stupid cable clips are next, and man, they gave me a hard time. It's much nicer than zip ties, but I really hated these. You put one side in place and then press hard, like really hard, to snap the other side into place. And I'm guessing that one of the reasons I hate them is because, yes, even though we've just barely begun, I've already made another mistake. I put these on the wrong side and had to take them off to redo it. Luckily, the pictures in the guide helped me catch that pretty quickly. From here, we add the PSU. Some screws get added to the sliding nuts that we put in, and then the PSU slides into place over top of them. It can then be screwed into the vertical frame and tightened down, both from the frame and from the sliding screws. Next is the so-called BuddyBox that holds the Buddy board, or the main circuit board. We begin by installing the box to the other side of the printer, basically the same process as the PSU, where you put it on the sliding nuts and then screw it into the frame. We can then add some thermal adhesive to the back of the board, flip the printer on its side, and place the board down in place. It then gets attached by 5 screws. At this point, we get out the X-axis holder, which is used later in assembly. It was designed with a special curve to help guide some zip ties into position around the buddy board. While we don't really need the zip ties until quite a while later, I guess they figure you might as well add them now. As a side note, our cat loved playing with them while I was between build sessions because they're just sort of sticking out the side. After getting the printer back upright, we can look at the Y-belt idler. We push a nut into position and then we screw it down to the frame. We then move to the Y motor. A few nuts get pushed into the motor holder, and then the holder gets screwed to the motor. From here, we attach the drive pulley. Using an Allen key, we can place the pulley at the right spot before tightening the grub screw. As a warning, I actually had this pulley flipped upside down, and I'll fix that later. With the thermal adhesive in place, which I assume just acts as a shock absorber, we can screw the motor into the frame. And there we go. The frame is basically done. In total, that took about an hour and 40 minutes. That wraps up the frame assembly, and in the next video we're going to take a look at the X-axis and X-carriage. As always, links to the other videos are down below. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment or hit me up on Twitter. If you found this helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.